Hello and welcome to the full moon in Scorpio on May 7th, 2020. This is a little bit of background on what the significance of today is to help you release and just get in touch with your deepest desires. So, first, a little bit of astrological background. So, the full moon, like I said, is in Scorpio. And Scorpio is a watery sign. It's the sign of, it symbolizes death, it symbolizes sexuality, and the things that maybe we deem taboo in life, but that are always there underneath the surface nonetheless. So it's going beyond the limitations of what society deems acceptable or appropriate or normal. It's looking at the darkness, looking at the shadow. So we're going to talk about the shadow today and what that means and how we can befriend our shadow and see it, be willing to see it. So that's Scorpio. And then the full moon in Scorpio is being, on the other side of that, we have the sun in Taurus, which is an earth sign. So we have earth and then we have water. And Taurus is about that slow, steady pace towards our goals. And it's about self-worth. It's about valuing yourself enough to be consistent and to take step by step towards what you want to manifest in your life. And it's also a very sensual sign. So when you combine the sensuality of Taurus and the sexuality and the taboo-ness of Scorpio, that can emphasize passion and just creativity when it comes to expressing sexuality. On top of that, we've been in a Pluto retrograde, as well as Neptune has also been retrograded, and Pluto is associated with Scorpio. And the retrograde in Pluto is in Capricorn, which is about extreme changes in major institutions such as government and structures that govern like society. So major changes in that and tapping into our personal individual power. So we've seen a lot of that in the collective, changes in laws and people fighting that and questioning, whether things are being done for the benefit of the greater good or not, and this and that. So having to scramble and do things in a different way, and with just old laws and ways of doing things just disappearing before our eyes. That's a Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. But then also the Neptune retrograde in Pisces, which is it's the sign that it rules. That's about tapping into our intuition, tapping into our watery depths as well, but it could also influence the urge to escape either using substances or binging on Netflix or whatever. So wanting to escape reality, that is a possibility when it comes to the Neptune retrograde. So we've probably experienced that as well, not wanting to accept the way that things are, and all these extreme views about what's real and what's fake, when it comes to what is going on for us collectively. So that's where we are at now. But we're getting ready to enter next week, which is going to be a very intense week because we're going to have 3 more planets going retrograde next week. 3 of them. So the first one is going to be Saturn on Monday. On May 11th, Saturn is going to retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. And this is about our vision, the structure of our vision, okay? And also the groups of people that we are associated with. So going into retrograde, this might mean that you might lose people, you might lose connection with people. It might be time to just really be clear and discern like who is on your side, who's on your team, who are the people you want to work with, and who are the ones that are not. So that might be, a retrograde is a period of reflection and going back and revising. So that might be under revision, your team, okay? The people that are, going to be on your side to help you, support you in manifesting your vision, okay? Then on May the 13th, 2 days later, Venus goes into retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So Venus is the planet of beauty and love. And in the sign of Gemini, it's about really focusing on romance that maybe has a little bit more to do with communication, writing poetry, writing a love letter, mental stimulation, being just attracted to someone's mind, right? That's Venus in Gemini, but that's going to be in retrograde. So it might be about revising your partnerships and your romances and your relationships. And in retrograde, sometimes we think about our past as well. So past relationships and what they mean and all of that. So that might be coming up starting next week. And then finally, we have Jupiter going retrograde on the 14th, next Thursday, in the sign of Capricorn. And that has to do with the expansion of your goals and the things that you're mastering in your life. And Capricorn is about discipline and working hard to achieve the things that you want. It's ruled by Saturn. So in Jupiter, it's about expanding these ideas about how it is that you achieve your goals. And when it goes into retrograde, it might feel like a closing in, but it's almost like we need to make sure that we are aware of what we're letting in. And are we, getting full? Are we expanding because we're too full of things that are not really in alignment? And how can we get back to expanding in a way that makes sense and is about mastering? So do we have our hands in too many projects, and can we hone in on one or two, right? But just focusing our power, okay? So that's kind of what's going on in the planets, what's going on in the atmosphere, and what the energies that we're working with. So today is about letting go because it's a full moon. So the question that we're holding is, what are we letting go of? Okay. And so I want to share with you these archetypes. And so earlier today, I was inspired by just a shirt that I put on, which is this character, the Little Mermaid, right? And it really just sparked something in me. And I started thinking about what is the origin of this story and what does it mean really? And what is this archetype that we've been, like fairy tales do, conditioned by the message, and its message has been embedded into our consciousness. So it's important to take a look at these stories. So let me show you. Okay. So the mermaid or the siren, right? You know, in the Disney version of The Little Mermaid, she's presented as this innocent, very childlike type of girl that is seeking, you know, this new world and wants more from life, right? And she's kind of rebellious and doesn't listen to her dad. But the siren herself can also be seen as this, you know, this dark side of the siren, which is more scorpionic, is this creature that, with her voice, she brings the sailors to come and die and crash, you know, in the rocks of the sea. So she mesmerizes, so she has power, and she rules death. So it's interesting to see this juxtaposition between these two versions of this archetype. And so I want to relate this to the subconscious and the unconscious mind, because Scorpio is really about diving into the depths of our unconscious. It's a very deep water sign. And Scorpio is very in tune with the shadow and with the darkness. So if you think about the ocean, the deepest, you know, part of the ocean, much of it has been unexplored. So when you think about diving into those depths, you don't know what you're going to find. It's unknown. It's unknown and unrecognized. And we have that mystery within us. So Scorpio is about being in touch with that and being aware fully of who we are, not just the tip of the iceberg, not just the subconscious, but down in the depths in this unconscious mind. So here we have another depiction, you know, of the different layers of consciousness. And so Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, talked about the shadow, and he talked about the anima and the animus, feminine and the masculine side. And he talked about the collective unconscious. So not only do we have an unconscious deep within us, but there's a collective unconscious where these archetypes and these stories, such as The Little Mermaid, speak to all of us collectively. So The Little Mermaid is actually a Danish story that was first published in 1837. And I just want to share this with you because there are similarities to the Disney version, but with a twist. So she had a widowed father and a grandmother and 5 older sisters. And in the story, she turns 15 and is allowed finally, after much waiting, to visit the world of the humans. And in a mermaid's life, they live 300 years, live a long time. But once they die, they turn to sea foam and they cease to exist forever. In contrast to the humans, who have an eternal soul that lives on in heaven. So the Little Mermaid wants an eternal soul. Yes, she's also longing for the Prince Charming, but she also just wants to live forever. So she visits the Sea Witch, and in exchange for her tongue and her beautiful voice, notice the symbolism here, she is given legs and is able to live amongst the humans. However, she's an incredible dancer, but every time she dances, she feels excruciating pain. So she goes on, and the other catch is that in order for her to remain a human and have an eternal soul, she has to marry someone and find true love, of course, right? So she tries to do it, but the prince decides that he's actually in love with someone else and wants to marry someone else. After she danced for him in excruciating pain, did all she could to get him to fall for her, it didn't work. So in the actual story, unlike the Disney version, she has sacrificed so much for him, and it looks like she's not going to be able to obtain an eternal soul. So her sisters actually come out and support her. They got her back. So the sisters give up their long, beautiful hair in order to be able to come to the surface and provide the Little Mermaid with a dagger that, if she uses on the prince, she is able to gain an eternal soul. But the guilt gets the best of her, and she just is unable to do it. So instead, she gives up her own life. And in doing that, all of a sudden, these air spirits come and tell her, you know what, since you were so selfless, we'll allow you to become an air entity. And if you do good deeds for 300 years, then you'll have an eternal soul. And that's how the story ends. So there she is when she first finds the prince. And then there are her sisters coming to help her with a dagger. And then there she is becoming an air spirit and giving her blessing to the prince and his new wife. So this is a very interesting story and a very interesting metaphor for the Scorpio full moon. First of all, we're talking about the divine feminine, and we're talking about the journey of wanting more than just this one life, wanting to ascend and to continue to develop our soul's evolution, even beyond death. So that's very scorpionic in itself. And it's about also the transition from water to air. So our sacral chakra, right below the belly button, is our water ruled chakra. It's about sexuality, it's about creativity, it's about flow and expansion. And moving up through the solar into the heart, we reach air. So she becomes air. So you can see the symbolism there, and in that she becomes this compassionate, selfless being. And it's really speaking to transitioning from me, from the ego, to we, the collective. And I think that it's related to this Scorpio full moon, because it's about, we need to really be in touch of how the aspects that we're unaware of might be hindering our growth, might be driven by the ego. So we're going to work on that a little bit today during the meditation. So, and the other thing is, of course, there's lots of symbolism in there about her losing her voice, right? What a metaphor for what women go through, just the patriarchal process, right? We have to give something up, we have to sacrifice something. And of course, there's that occult, there's the sea witch, which is depicted as dangerous and evil, but she's a witch, she's a medicine woman. And she understands alchemy, and she understands that in order to get this, you got to do this. There's a trade. There's a trade in life. And she gives up her voice in order to transcend. So What are we letting go of today in this cycle so that we can transcend? So it might be something that we're familiar with that is comfortable to do, that keeps us stagnant, that keeps us in the same cycle. But it's time to move on, and it's time to transcend that. It's time to release. So that's what the Scorpio full moon is about. Okay. So let's transition now into the meditation, and that is only for live viewers. So if you want to ever be a part of a full moon circle, you can check out all the events that I have on my Instagram or on my Facebook, Zenith Healing Center, Instagram at goddess_Zenith. So I'll see you guys later.